Many instructors often wonder, myself included for a long time, why focus on building knowledge when students can look up information they forget? We want students to reach higher levels of learning and to be able to think critically, not just remember facts, right? The first thing I'll say is that research is showing that many of the active teaching methods for improving memory also support deeper understanding and application of what has been learned to new situations. In fact, many of these tips work because they make the learning material more meaningful to students and get them to make connections between what they are learning and other things they know or are learning about. But I also want to make clear that building knowledge and being able to remember material is paramount to reaching those higher levels of learning. An important take-home message I want to emphasize is this: building knowledge supports higher level learning and thinking. Having relevant background knowledge about a given subject is going to help students learn more about that subject and to learn it more deeply. For instructors, as experts in their fields, it is much easier for them, for example, to understand and work with a complex issue in their field than it is for a student who is new to the field. Instructors have more background knowledge to draw from, and that background knowledge is well learned and automatic for them, which allows them to reach those higher levels of thinking quickly and easily. However, instructors are often leery of focusing too heavily on getting students to memorize anything. Instructors generally want students to focus exclusively on those higher levels of learning. Take, for example, Bloom's taxonomy. We know that it is more desirable to get students to move up the pyramid and to reach those higher levels of learning. However, with all of the emphasis on getting students to reach higher levels of learning, we tend to implicitly poo-poo the lower levels, including the bottom knowledge level. This is exacerbated by the fact that students have endless amounts of knowledge at their fingertips. Enter Google. If you're an instructor, you may have even had the thought, why test my students' memory for the material when they can just look it up whenever they need it? But we shouldn't forget that all of the higher levels of learning in Bloom's taxonomy rest on and are supported by the knowledge level. Students are going to struggle with those higher levels of learning if they don't have some of the basic knowledge of the subject matter already in their heads without having to look it up. Let me show you a cool demo that illustrates this. This demo is based on a task used in a classic psychology study on reasoning. Here we see 4 cards. Each card has 2 sides to it, and on one side there is a letter, and on the other side is a number. So if I were to flip the A card over, I would see a number on the other side. For this task, there is a rule to be followed. If there is a vowel on one side of the card, there must be an even number on the other side. Your job? Verify whether this rule has been met by turning over the minimum number of cards needed to do so. Which cards would you turn over to verify the rule has been met? Pause this video until you have decided on your answer. The answer is to turn over the A and the 3. The reason we don't need to turn over the 2 or the B is because the rule only applies to vowels. That means we don't care about the B since it isn't a vowel, and we don't care about the 2 because any letter can have a 2 on the other side, vowel or consonant. Anyway, don't feel bad if you didn't get this right. Most of the participants in this study got it wrong. Let me give you a different version of this task. For this version, the rule is, if you are drinking alcohol, then you must be 21 years of age or older. Which cards would you turn over to verify that the rule has been met? You likely found that the answer was much easier to come up with this time. We would turn over the beer card and the 17 card because those are the only cards that need verification. Why is this version so much easier? The reason is that the rule is already part of our background knowledge. at least for those of us who have been living in a culture with this sort of rule. It's automatic for us. When we can utilize information with very little effort, it frees up room in our minds for us to be able to solve a problem like this one. We can only hold so much in our minds at any one time, and when information like this is highly automatic, it takes up very little space, which in turn frees up space to engage in those higher level thinking skills. Let's take a look at another example of how having some things memorized facilitates us doing more and reaching those higher levels of learning. Take a look at this math problem and see if you can do it in your head. Pause the video for a moment to see if you can do it in your head, no calculators or solving by hand. So the answer is 126. Now, the thing is, you likely wouldn't have been able to do this more advanced problem in your head had you not already memorized these 3 problems. Of course, there are other ways to approach solving 18 times 7, but many of us probably did so by completing these 3 steps, all of which we had to hold in working memory as we did so. Were these steps not already part of our background knowledge, we wouldn't have the working memory capacity needed to solve this problem in our heads. And that brings us back to our take-home message. Building knowledge can be so important for helping students reach those higher levels of learning.